SPY is trying its hardest to hold up by Google and Tesla, but the rest of the Mag 7 is trying to tear it down as they are selling off. The SPY in the morning held this descending support level that we had drawn out. We sent the levels to Discord. It got a pop, and this was a weak pop, rejecting around 674 right in this liquidity pocket that we had drawn out. We had a chance to move to 676.80 or 681 or somewhere, give or take a little bit of change. We are now breaking below this trend line as I'm recording this video, and a couple of warning signs are flashing, including the dollar continuing to grind higher. We also got a very bearish signal that we have been watching out for on the macro time frame, on the weekly, which was a MACD cross to the downside. We got that cross on the SPY. The last time the SPY ended up crossing to the downside, the SPY dropped quite some time back in March, April, bottoming out in April, dropping about 25%. Are we going to see that same thing? Maybe, maybe not, but we know that there are liquidity concerns because of the Fed as well as the banks having an emergency meeting, and then what we saw in the repo market flashing warning signals. Now, it's not just the market that is giving us this bearish bias. First of all, the last two weekly candles, we saw a sell candle with higher volume, and then we got a lower wick, which was bullish. Then we saw an indecision candle with a higher and lower wick, and now we are beginning the week with a body candle that is trading beneath the previous body candle with a bearish bias and a MACD cross to the downside, which is not necessarily good. Now, the biggest catalyst of the week is Nvidia, which also got a MACD cross to the downside as it has lost momentum once it pushed towards $200. So overall, we do have a very bearish bias so far, and I continue to add puts to this market as we are bleeding off today. Those are in some nice profit so far, but I believe they are going to make more and more profit. Now, first it was Michael Burry, then SoftBank. Now Peter Thiel sold all of his Nvidia stake, which I believe was worth about $100 million, which could be another warning sign, or these things could just be people recalibrating towards tax season or trying to get out prior to the holidays where they take the break from Thanksgiving to Christmas. A lot of this tends to happen towards the end of the year. However, the US debt also increased by a staggering $620 billion during the government shutdown, which is also not a good thing to see for the overall market. Okay, so from long story short, volatility still on. Government is opened. We do have a bearish bias coming into December, which aims for a flash crash to the downside, which is going to affect our other plays. First of all, MicroStrategy tried to hold our box down here between 200 and 225. It is not holding. It looks like it's heading towards 180 as we speak. The last time MicroStrategy or strategy played out this exact pattern when it broke below the EMAs back in 2021 and then sold off, what we had coming into, we had January of 2022, a short bounce before bleeding off for the rest of the year. We all know what happened with Bitcoin as well as the overall market. We came off of a double top high, and then January of 2022, we tried to kind of bounce and get this base before selling off lower, getting another base, and then ultimately crashing. We are coming off of sort of this double top, coming down, likely getting a bounce at 88,600. But we could not close the weekly above the 50 nor the 55-week moving average, which we didn't even close close to that. We actually didn't even close above the 618 on the weekly time frame or on the fib channel, the 618, which is about 96K. We closed beneath that, and we opened this weekly candle beneath that, which is very bearish. I wouldn't be surprised if at minimum Bitcoin heads to 92K. And then for the rest of the week, we could possibly see that 88K range with MicroStrategy bleeding even worse. Now I'm going to jump into AMC and GameStop because take a look at this. Japan's 20-year bond yield jumps to highest level since 1999. Japan is considering spending around $110 billion in new prime minister's first stimulus package. And finally, Japan's economy shrank for the first time in a year and a half, with Q3 GDP falling 1.8%, annualized, outperforming forecasts of a 2.4% contraction. Before we all know what this means, but before I bring you that, I want to talk about INTC real quick. there's a lot of plays, especially in the AI space, chip sector, data centers that are selling off while we have other plays skyrocketing. So they're getting a little bit of a cool off. Intel has a beautiful cup and handle pattern on the chart, kind of. I wouldn't be surprised. This is just a little bit of a trade idea I want to throw in the video. If this thing ran towards $48, $50 by very early of 2026. Now you are risking the downside move of a retest on this channel at about 31.35, so keep that in mind. But I do believe Intel will see a bullish move higher, as I believe they just got some more news. Donald Trump buying 1 million worth of bonds and then possibly buying more. Okay, so we all know what's happening. If not, JP 10-year, the Japan government bonds, we haven't taken a look at this in a while because it hasn't really done much. But this continues to spike, in fact, spiking straight up. If you don't know what's happening, the carry trade that Roaring Kitty kind of posted about is possibly still in play. Choose these words very, very carefully. Listen to these words very carefully. It's possibly still in play. The last time, and I think it is in play because of how it lines up with our chart, but the last time we had these peaks and these spikes, as you can see, GameStop has had aggressive spikes. One was back here in November where GameStop jumped about almost 60%. The next one was this pop, which was about 170%. The next one was this March pop, which was about 40%. And now, if we're seeing something similar here, assuming we get the flash crash down with the market and bounce off of our trend line around 1875, a minimum of about 46 or so, 47% in my opinion is what we would see, which is 2760, because this is a psychological rejection level, or 2775, right? Beyond that, you do have the possibility of 30, and then so on and so on and so on, which I believe you would enter a squeeze because that lines up perfectly with our bars pattern that we have drawn out, which is a sell-off and then a bounce off of our trend line before squeezing following the earnings coming into late December, having that sort of short squeeze setup. Very similar to AMC, we came down in my zone here between 230 and 215. We're now at 219. Anybody in the AMC puts that played AMC puts because of our callouts, I just want to warn you right now, I do not give financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but now would be the time to exit those puts as you are risking the possibility of a move lower, which we do not know of. That would bring you down to 176, which would be a hard move lower. This is very it's very unsure we get that 20% drop, and I would say unlikely. I think AMC builds a base between 215 and 230 before having its rally alongside GameStop. So be wary of that. I think same time, mid-December, we start to build some legs here, and these are probably now in max profit. You could see that 215, but that's not much more of a drop, so just keep that in mind as well. Also, if the market wobbles, flashes down, and then continues to skyrocket higher, it's going to cause short sellers to cover, which is what we saw back in 2021, which I believe is very important for these markets. Now, Genius Group is also issuing a dividend, a Bitcoin dividend to shareholders, record date in 11 days on November 28th. I'm curious to see what this, if any, will do to the stock price and if our CEOs should follow. So we're going to watch very closely. Long story short, GNS came down to a beautiful support level today after it got that pop in after hours, hitting a perfect resistance level around $1.50. 146 is our resistance, and then we have 91 cents as support. We basically got a beautiful build off of that, along with a gap fill at 88 cents. I don't think this is a crazy buying opportunity for GNS if you are going to, play this short squeeze motive over here. So I'm curious to see what they do. I don't think this is a bad opportunity right here, but again, very, very high risk, especially with these companies that aren't necessarily doing well fundamentally, right? They are engaging in developing artificial intelligence education. So still pretty interesting, the sector they're in, but this isn't a fundamental analysis. Obviously, you can see that the chart is failing very, very aggressively. But for the cause, for what they're doing with the lawsuit against Citadel and Virtu, Very curious as to entering this play and seeing what it does. I would probably have a stop at 80 cents or so to see what happens. Another one I want you to look at is IVVD, which is which has a 13% short interest, continuing to rocket up 27% today. I'd watch 335, 414, 520, and $8.15, so on and so on. I'm not sure if this one will keep running. It's one of those that I'm putting on the radar to keep a side eye on. Now, as the market is selling off right now, just to close out the video, we are trying to hold. I think the 1 hour gives a better picture. We are trying our hardest to hold this support at 669.30 now, which is what we see, but I don't believe that support is going to hold. I think that the push higher had weak volume. Now the drop lower has stronger volume. As you can see, volume faded on us trying to hold and accumulate, and then we saw a big red volume candle. Volume increased since the opening candle, which SPY still shows that it could be holding its own right here, but you're getting more and more likely you see 665.50 and then possibly a drop lower if we break this blue ascending support level that you see on my chart right here, which we tested once, twice, 3, 4, 5. The more support gets tested, the more likely it is to break. And that's only recently. You see a bunch more tests back here. If we break this level, which is becoming increasingly more likely, you see a move down to the lower region right towards what I've been talking about, 655. Okay, 655, still watching that. Overall, nothing is looking bullish, especially heading into NVIDIA earnings. That is it, guys. That's what I got for you for now. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel on your way out, and make sure to join the Discord, the top link in the description. I love you all. God bless. Lottery Stocks out.